So, Leah, it's lovely to have you here in Australia. You're the founder and chief investment officer of Lizard Investments, which in Australia is accessible via Pengana's Global Small Companies Fund. One of the quotes I like of yours is that global small cap investing is not something you should do at home.
Right.
So, firstly, why do you think it's important to include global small caps in your portfolio, and why is it a part of investing that's worth paying an active manager to give you access to?
Right. Well, global small caps offer you the greatest choice of any investment category because there are obviously thousands of them.
And when you talk about small caps, I mean, your fund's really targeting somewhere in that sweet spot, sort of above $1 billion,
say 1
less
to
than
2
3
billion US is what we call small caps, which I think is larger than small caps in Australia. But there's a very, very broad range of choice. But as the investment community has become more globalized and as investment companies have become larger, they have been forced to focus on only the very, very biggest companies. So you'll see that most portfolios are composed of companies with 20, 30, 40, $50 billion market caps up to the very, very big behemoths like Amazon, okay? And it's very hard to add value because it's much harder to analyze larger companies and it's much harder to turn over a stone and find out something that someone else hasn't already discovered. Whereas we are really going around the world with flashlights. And it's labor intensive, but there's many, many more opportunities to find outliers and to find really pan for gold. But you have to be trained and you have to have access. And finally, I would say that if you're going to do active management, you should invest in concentrated portfolios. And if you're going to make a concentrated bet on a small cap, you'd better have a professional doing the work for you.
So your portfolio is interesting because I think you've said that you prefer to have less than 50 stocks or around 50 stocks in your portfolio, right, which when you consider the universe of companies that have a market capitalization of 1 to 2 billion US dollars, there's thousands of those. Right. So in terms of being able to sift through all of those, one of the other things I think is interesting is I've heard you mention that about 70% of the investment universe is not really researched at all.
Right.
So I think your thesis would be that there's lots of opportunities in that universe, and if you're only picking the very best 50 of them, you're hoping that you get mostly good ones. Is that what your thinking is?
Yes, well, I think you want to aim for the outliers. You don't want a representative portfolio. If you think about it, if a company is small, generally there's a reason it hasn't gotten big. So what you really want to find under ideal circumstances are the smaller companies that may be just locally known that have the capacity and the ability to grow. And I have had the privilege of doing this for a very long time. And I remember, for example, investing in a company in Sweden in the 90s called Hennes & Mauritz, which had a big department store in Stockholm, and it's now called H&M, and it's obviously all over the world. And I remember finding SAP when it was a German company and had not yet signed up its first American customer. And so why waste your shots on buying something at 15 that you think is worth 20? Why wouldn't you buy something at 15 which in 5 years you think will be worth 100?
Well, it's wonderful to get insight into the way you approach your fund, and it's a delight to spend some time with you.
Thank you very much. It's been a delight to be here.